Hello again, YouTube, and welcome to Plant of the Day. My name is Ariel, and today we are talking about the Sakura, or the flowering cherry. This I'm holding is a piece of Sakura branch that I picked from a nearby park. I already took all the blossoms off of it to do the projects we're going to do today. First, we're going to talk about what cherry blossoms, aka Sakura, are, their significance in Japanese culture and legends. We are going to collect some and make some food and medicine out of them, and I'm just going to be a ridiculous person this whole time, as I always am. While cherries are found pretty much worldwide, it is the Japanese we have to thank for all the exotic flowering varieties that we can enjoy today. These trees are bred from wild cherries and fruit cherries to produce blossoming trees that don't really produce fruit because all their energy is focused into making unusual flowers. Here are some of the most common varieties, and the Japanese even have a tradition built around the cherry blossom season, which is anywhere from February to April. They actually picnic under them, and it's like this big cultural event. Here are some cherry blossoms in Kyoto, and people just eat dumplings and tea and have a grand old time under the cherry blossoms every year. There's even a saying that people mostly go to these picnics called hanami for the food and not the cherry blossoms, but I think throughout Japanese history and culture, everybody has also been there for the majestic beauty of the cherry blossoms. And now this trend is happening worldwide in places like Sweden and Georgia in the United States. Of particular interest are cherry trees, Sakura trees, that have special historical significance or are just very, very old. The oldest cherry tree is 2,000 years old in Japan. There are many tales of human souls residing in Sakura trees, and this is a familiar motif. There is a lot of cultural crossover, I've always felt, between old Celtic cultures and Celtic mythology and Japanese mythology, but that's a subject for another day. Speaking of legends, here is an unverified Sakura legend that may or may not be true, but I thought it was cool. The Sakura tree has its own goddess, who is also the goddess of Mount Fuji, and her name is Konohana Sakuya Hime. She is a goddess of ephemeral beauty, earthly wonders, and springtime. There are many stories involving her, Konohana Sakuya Hime. One story that I particularly like, although truth be told, I don't know if this is an actual Japanese legend or if, people on Google are just making things up, but a story I've come across a lot is the story of Hope and Sakura. Once upon a time, there was a cherry tree who never bloomed. All the animals in the forest avoided him so as not to catch his sad sickness. One day, the Sakura goddess herself approached this young cherry tree. She offered to give him the power of shape-shifting so that he could turn into a human. Maybe that would help his deep depression. If after 20 years of freely switching between a tree and a man, he could decide to stay a tree forever or die as a man. The fairy just wanted him happy and to make beautiful blooms. So the cherry tree turns into a man, and he is immediately disappointed by the world. This is allegedly feudal era Japan, so there's wars and suffering and sadness everywhere. He is just about done with humankind and spends more and more time as a tree, except one day he turned into a man, kind of on a lark, and met this beautiful young girl. Her name was Sakura. They became fast friends, and he immediately fell in love with her. He struggled with his emotions for her until the day that he confessed his love and also told Sakura who he really was. She was so shocked by this revelation that she fell silent and still. In despair, Yohiro, as he called himself, and that means hope, turned back into a tree. Many days pass with Yohiro pretty much ready to die without ever understanding love or getting to bloom. Suddenly, Sakura appears out of the blue and hugs him as a tree, and she says, "I only want to be with you." The Sakura goddess appears, and she now offers Sakura a decision. She asks Sakura, "Do you want to live with Yohiro forever as a human, or do you want to merge with him as a tree?" And Sakura says, "I am done with the humans too. I want to be a tree." So her wish is granted, and Yohiro and Sakura's souls merge inside of the Sakura Yohiro cherry tree. And for once in his life, the cherry tree blooms, and those blossoms are Sakura. And now every year, there are blossoms who exist only for the sake of beauty. The end. In the Japanese springtime, you will find cherry blossoms featured in all manner of sweets and dumplings, ice creams even, and especially Sakura herbal tea. Taking Sakura in tea in small amounts has a lot of health benefits. It reduces water retention because of its diuretic properties, which is great if you're bloated or your face is a little swollen. It's great for allergy season, which is the season that Sakura blossom blooms. It is really anti-aging, both because it has essential fatty acids that feed your skin and because it has compounds that reduce oxidative stress on your skin and just makes you beautiful forever. So definitely wash your face with it because it will also help with acne. Most importantly, Sakura contains coumarin. It is a potent chemical that they make blood thinning drugs out of. So be very careful and maybe don't take it if you're on blood thinners. The point is Sakura both reduces PMS, I think because of those blood thinning properties, and it also strengthens your heart muscle, which is such an important thing in your body. So remember, moderation is key when you're taking any new herb, but a little bit of Sakura in the springtime in your life could really uplift your heart and health. So this whole time I've been rambling, I have been picking Sakura from my local neighborhood park. I don't know what variety this tree is, I just know it is beautiful and bountiful. I got lots of branches, not too much obviously, but enough to do a couple cute little projects. Now, I did want to mention something kind of important. I am picking cherry blossoms here in my neighborhood. They're just in the park, free to take within reason. But in Japan, it is illegal to pick cherry blossoms because it's such a big part of their culture. I'm picking them here because I live in America. I am not in Japan and I would not be picking cherry blossoms in Japan. So the first thing we're going to make is dried cherry blossoms, and I'm going to be preserving one batch in sugar and one batch in salt. And you can see my cherries, my little jar of salt, and my little jar of sugar. The salt is pink. Yes, I am that kind of pink salt person. So I'm putting some sugar in the jar. And notice that I haven't picked the cherry blossoms yet. I should do that. Alright, I have finally picked the cherry blossoms, and I just kind of layered them in the sugar. I got frustrated with it and I just started dumping sugar on the flowers and kind of shaking it. But as long as all of the cherry blossoms are covered in the sugar, then I think it is totally good and fine. And how the sugar works is it kind of draws the moisture out of the petals, and hopefully it'll yield a really nice sort of half-dried product. Now, salt time. I could have used a more finely grained salt, but I did not. That's okay. We're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to do a layer of salt, a layer of flowers, a layer of salt again. Ooh, that's a lot of salt. I might have messed that up. Whatever, we're going to go with it. I just kind of mixed the flowers in. Yep, doing everything really precisely and perfectly. That is just my style. That's what you guys are here for, right? And again, my philosophy is as long as enough salt covers all the flowers, that is good enough for me. Normally, I would let this dry more than just a couple days, but I was in too much of a hurry because I'm an impatient person. But this is what they look like. Next we are going to make an herbal tincture, which is just an alcohol extract. As you can see, I went out and I picked more cherry blossoms. These kind, I also don't know the variety, but they are those multi-layered petaled ones. They're so pretty. All I did was put them in a jar. I am just going to put pure vodka over it. It is just Smirnoff, which is kind of middle shelf alcohol. I used to use really cheap alcohol for my tinctures. You spend the extra couple bucks. The taste really makes a difference. I will be using this for an herbal tincture that I can use for PMS and headaches and things like that. And so we're going to put this in a cool, dark place, and we're going to shake it every day for a couple weeks, and then we're going to strain it out, and we will have a really potent medicine. So traditionally, Sakura tea is made with salt, preserved, and sometimes even fermented cherry blossoms. I had no time for fermenting, so I just removed them from my salt drying situation thing a couple days ago. First, I tried to strain them out. That wasn't going to work, so I am picking them out individually. Yes, so tedious, but worth it, I assure you. As you can see, they're so delicate and pretty, and the salting actually made them kind of tougher, less easy to break. And so now I have a good amount, but I have to shake the salt out of them even more. and I just did that by hand. And so then I just took a couple of the little Sakura blossoms and put them in my little cup and poured near boiling simmering water over it. It fogged up my camera lens, and then I waited like 3 minutes and the water turned this beautiful golden color. And the smell was kind of like pollen, kind of like vanilla. It was so intoxicating and lovely. The blossoms are now pure white because all of the color has gone into the tea. It was so delicious. It was light and not salty at all. It just tasted like drinking flowers. And like I mentioned previously, something about the Sakura relieves my frequent headaches that I get. I think it's that slight blood thinning effect. So now finally, we have the Sakura sugar cookies I made. Maybe this was my favorite project to do with it. I took the Sakura flowers that I preserved in sugar, and instead of messing around with the strainer and trying to get them out, I said, screw it, we're just going to put this whole thing of sugar in the cookie dough. Because the cookie dough requires sugar anyway. Why not just cut out the middleman? And so I did that. I just plopped it in there, and I just use a regular old sugar cookie recipe. My sugar cookies are extra yellow because my chickens give me very orange egg yolks, but that's fine. So these are how they turned out. This is pre-baking, and I put a little extra Sakura in the center of each cookie. After baking, they actually turned out really well. You could even still see the petals in each cookie. And the flavor it let them was kind of vanilla-y, very flowery and fragrant, and overall so lovely. My family also really enjoyed them. As far as they're concerned, I could put a lot weirder things in cookies than Sakura blossoms. Thank you guys again for watching the video. I appreciate each and every one of you for liking and subscribing and sharing this video. Please feel free to leave a comment about what plants that you would like featured in the future. And I'll see you next week. Bye!